So today we're going to be talking about working with acrylic paints, and I'm going to share with you some of my tricks for what I do to do color mixing and some of the tips about how to work with the paints, the types of brushes, palette knives, all that kind of good stuff. And this is the piece of artwork that you might have seen if you saw some of my promotions. This is some figs, and I just love the flat sort of matte finish of the paints I was working with here. And that's actually what I'm going to be showing you today is the Pebeo paints in particular. So here's the tube. It's the Studio Acrylics from Pebeo, and they have a nice between satin and matte finish. And also I've got just a whole handful of paints here to give away during the show. So if you are on YouTube, I invite you to scan the QR code at the top of the screen, or go ahead into the description of the video on YouTube and you'll be able to uh, click on the link and join us over on Whatnot. If you're new to Whatnot, Whatnot will give you $15 to spend on the platform. They'll just dump it right into your wallet when you sign up. And then you can use that on my show or any other show on Whatnot. So I definitely invite you to come over, because if you want a chance to win some of these gorgeous paints that we're going to be playing with today, you'll need to be on the Whatnot platform. But if you are on YouTube and you just want to enjoy the workshop on YouTube, absolutely, I invite you to do that. And after the workshop is over, there will be an art auction. So in the art auction this week, I have a couple of new pieces I'm going to show you quickly. Following along with the fig theme, this is a blank greeting card. So I like to make real art blank greeting cards. The nice thing about these is that they are suitable for framing. So you can either just frame them yourself, or you can send somebody a nice sentiment on the inside, and it is signed on the back that it is an original piece of artwork, and they can put it in a 5x7 frame or an 8x10 mat and put it in an 8x10 frame. So that's one of the advantages of those. Here's another one. I just love blueberries. I learned to paint blueberries from Kristy Rice on YouTube. And so that's, her name starts with a K, Kristy, and last name Rice, like the food that you eat, Rice. And I watched one of her videos where she was doing blueberries in watercolor, but here it is in acrylic, where I've taken the same concepts and made it in acrylic. So I'm going to show you how to do that, because I love painting blueberries. And then I've also made a couple of, oh, thanks for the hearts. I've also made a couple of new artist cards. So these are mini works of art. They're called ACEOs. That means Artist Card Editions and Originals. Mine are all originals. I don't have any editions, which an edition means it's a print. Some people also call these artist trading cards, because often artists will trade them and have what they call ATC swaps in order to get artwork from other artists. And I love them as mini works of art. And so these are going to be auctioned at the end of the workshop as well. But right now I'm going to put those aside, because I don't want to get anything dirty, which I am famous for, because paint will begin flying here in no time. And I wanted to show you one of the artists who was my inspiration for this topic. Because I am on social media all the time. I have my own social media that I'm running, as well as then I'm looking for what other people are doing that attracts me, so that I look at the colors and I look at the composition and I look at the subject matter. And so the inspiration for today's workshop is Vicki McGrath art. Vicki McGrath art. Those are her oranges. Look at that, martinis and lemons. What? Love that. Maybe then instead of martinis, they're actually lemonade. Who knows? Right? And then this is her figs. So you see her figs. I was using that lemon drops, right? That's probably what it is. Crazy junk art. The This is probably lemon drops cocktails right here, right? But very summery. And she's located in Chicago. Again, it's Vicky, Vicki, McGrath. So McGrath art on Instagram. And when I save the video to YouTube, I will be sure. What's that? The painting, not the drink. Oh, crazy junk art. You crack me up. Um, so when I save the video to YouTube, then if I have used an artist or a book as inspiration for the workshop, then I will include a link. So for instance, for this workshop, I will include a link to Vicki McGrath art, to her Instagram, in the comments or the description of the video after the fact. All right. So that you can go check her out too. And if you can afford her artwork, buy some. Because, I like to be an artist supporting other artists, right? All right. Now, what are we going to use today for supplies? Today, we are going to be using, as I showed you before, some what's called studio acrylic ink. So, hey there, Shauna's Treasures and Art. Welcome in, welcome in. We're just getting started. And so this is it says studio acrylic, but it's an excellent quality acrylic paint. It has the light fastness rating on it. So for artists that are making art for to give to friends or to sell, it's good to know what the light fastness rating is of a paint. Also, is it transparent or is it opaque? That's helpful to know, especially if you're going to be color mixing this particular one. Often if there's a square and there's nothing inside the square, that means it's transparent. If the square is half black and half not filled in, that means it's semi-transparent or semi-opaque. And if it's filled in like this, that means that it is opaque, okay, which means it should cover very well. Some of these tubes of the Pebeo paints, the newer tubes actually say on it in words whether it's transparent or opaque or semi-transparent. And I think that's because it just makes it more clear when you see it like that. Like for instance, this is the gold metallic. So this is a tube of gold acrylic paint. I'm going to show you some special things to do with the metallic paints a little bit later. Oh, they're so nice. Okay, so let me set these other ones here aside and look at what else I want to show you. Now let's talk about acrylic paints in general. Okay, this happens to be the Pebeo paint line, so I do have a brochure on it, but it is an acrylic paint similar to other brands. I like these jars. You see the jar here? So yes, they're tubes, but I love the jars because when you have extra paint on your palette, it's super easy to use a palette knife and scrape up that extra paint and just put it on the lip of the jar to get it back into the jar. So I do love that. And Crazy Junk Art asked, are they thinner in the jars? I have not experienced the paint being thinner when it comes from the jar. It's still, let me show you an example of a jar. This is the new line of paint from Pebeo. Let me see. That is similar to studio acrylics, but there's some really cool things that I'll tell you about later when they're released because they're not quite out yet. But this paint, here it is in the jar. So can you see how thick it is? It's barely running. See that? So that's similar viscosity to what is in the tubes. All right. So excellent question. Yes, nice, right? I love that. But this is some of their new paints, and I'm excited to share them with you soon. Actually, this is a piece that I did with the new paints to test them out. And it was more of a traditional still life kind of, I am in Florida, so I have to paint myself some oranges, right? Oh, hey there, Gabriel. Gabriel Lee, welcome in, welcome in. This is 100 milliliters. This will last you a long time, unless you love working with metallics like I do, and then it won't last you very long. Let me show you my metallics. Okay, this is copper, which is one of my favorite colors to work with and to blend with, especially for artwork that has a feel of the Southwest. You use a lot of the copper or the darker colors, rich colors like this with your turquoises, right, and your silver. Okay, this is one, and it's basically, there's a tiny bit left in the bottom. And this is another one, and there's barely anything left in here. And these are massive. These are the large 250 milliliters. So that shows you how much of the metallics I use, right? I love my metallics. But I do have a smaller tube here that's full. And so I'll be showing you some color mixing with that when we get over top of the table. But with the Studio acrylic line in particular, there's 60 colors to it, and there are some mediums, like for instance the gel medium that I use all the time for my collage workshops. So let me show you some of the features of the paint here. And this is going to be basically any acrylic paints. Lovely color, yes, exactly. So this is what I do when I first get new paints. So even for the new paint line, I did exactly the same thing. I take this is a canvas board, and they're cheap, right? They're very inexpensive. And I see the black line through here? So I'll use a Sharpie, or I may use black gesso on a brush to do that line with. And then this is black gesso down here. So because I really want to test the paints out, I make sure that I put fresh gesso on the top. So fresh white gesso on the top and fresh black gesso on the bottom. And that way, when I test my acrylic paints out, I'm getting the way that they should work on a fresh gessoed surface. And what is gesso? Gesso is a primer, and it has a little bit of tooth to it. All right, and it comes in white, black, clear, and some companies like Holbein even have a whole bunch of colors of the primer for your canvas. So this is a canvas board, and so that's what I did here. Now, the reason that I put the line here is I want to see how transparent is the color that I'm working with. So acrylic paints come in the opaque and the transparent and the semi-transparent, like I mentioned earlier. And so that's what you see right here. So this one is a transparent paint, and you can see the black mostly shows through it right here, right? And then this is an opaque version. So here's a transparent red and an opaque red. And so you can see that the opaque red sits on top of the black or a dark color. And so that's helpful to know as you're layering the acrylic paints, because I love the fact that acrylic paints, you can just layer and layer and layer to your heart's content. And if you, I like to say there are no mistakes in acrylic painting, no crying in acrylic painting, because everything can be covered up. You can even take gesso. If I had a painting and I said, oh, I don't like that painting, that is gross, I just am not getting it, I can cover the whole thing up with gesso. So white gesso, black gesso, whichever, and then repaint on that surface. So that's why I say there's no crying in acrylic, okay? Um, now there's also iridescent finishes. So this is what's called a Dynacolor from Pebeo, but this would be the same as an iridescent or a mica finish in another kind of paint. And you can see the shimmer that you get, and it's very opaque. The same is true, of course, of metallics. So if you get a good quality metallic, you're going to be able to see how it covers that black line, and it covers it here. I love the juxtaposition of the matte black and then these shimmery colors on top of it. I like that, where you put down a dark color and then you come back and you hit it with a little bit of the metallic, right? And then that really gives you a lot of drama. And metallics, for the most part, cover very well. It depends on the brand, and you have to test them out to see how well they cover. Sometimes you have to put 2 or 3 coats of the metallic down in order to get the depth of shimmer that you want. And then over here, these are some special effect paints. So this is a fluorescent paint, and that's one of the ones I'm giving away today because I'm going to show you the power of fluorescent paint. Oh, because my trick is that I mix colors with fluorescent paints, and I can't wait to show you in a few minutes what that does. So this is a fluorescent, and so you can see I would call that semi-transparent, right? Because it's not completely seeing through it, and it's showing up a little bit here on the black. But if you look at this phosphorescent, right here, the phosphorescent is very transparent and you can barely see it on the black right there, right? But let me show you something super cool. This is a black light. You use these to find uranium glass. If you're familiar with uranium glass from a lot of the sellers on Whatnot, what they'll do is they have one of these, it's a special hertz. So it's not your typical black light. Here, I'm going to show you. It's an A300 to 365 nanometers. So hopefully you can see that. If you're interested, snap a picture of it. That is the special wavelength that you need for uranium glass. And so but this also shows up your fluorescent and phosphorescent paints. So watch this. So see the pink glowing and the blue glowing? See how the blue glows even when it's on top of the black, even though, and this one, I mean, it fluoresces like crazy, the fluorescent. But the interesting thing here is what it does here. So fluorescent colors, this does not show up in the dark. Fluorescent colors will, you won't be able to see them in the dark. But they do show up under black light, which is super cool. I've been to art shows where the whole art show was, they had black lights shining on the art, and it was incredibly cool. So with phosphorescent paint, what that means is that it has light cells in it that capture the light during the day, and then it phosphoresces the light at night. So this, if I use this paint at night, it's going to glow like what I just showed you under the black light. It's going to glow blue. So there's a blue and a green and a yellow. I'm not sure what other colors. I'm sure there are tons of different colors out there, but that's phosphorescent. That means glow in the dark. Fluorescent just means that it's very bright, but it will not glow in the dark. Okay, so those are the different kinds of paints that you can get out on the market. So here again, these are some of the, right, here's your fluorescence. Look how bright that is. And I love, now, if you know anything about color mixing with acrylics or even with watercolors and gouache, then you know that you get your better color mixes with transparency. So notice that this fluorescent, and this fluorescent all are transparent right here. And then these phosphorescents are also transparent. And so what that means is that these paints will mix well. They play well with other acrylic paints. So that's another reason why you want to do this kind of testing with your acrylic paints to find out what the transparency of it is and how it looks over top of black. It can really be helpful. Yeah, but those fluorescents mix incredibly well, and you're going to be shocked. Okay, the next, here are some more of the metallics. So most paints companies that have metallic paints include your gold, your silver, and your copper. Now, some of them also have different versions of gold. I find gold can tend to come in 3 or 4 different versions. And so Pebeo has a regular gold, which is kind of a bright, and that's the one that Crazy Junk Art just won. This is they just call it iridescent gold. And so it's this lighter one. And that's the one that I find that I personally use the most. But this one is more of an antique type gold or a warmer gold, right? So this one's cooler, this one's warmer. And so the warmer gold is excellent for if you want to give something more of an antique look to it, or if you're color mixing and you want to make your color mix look like it's antique or old, so you want it to have a darker color to it, then you would use this darker gold. And then there's the silver. And again, these are opaque, so you see they cover that line. And then the copper. And then over here are some of the colors that you can mix using these gold, silver, and copper colors, like rose gold and bronze. There's a trick to mixing bronze, and let me show you some of the bronze that I have here. For instance, this is a painting that I was working on using some of the color mixing of the metallics. So I wanted to make this look like an antique bronze vase, and then a brass bowl. So brass is a little bit more yellow, and bronze is a little more dark and green. So you can mix these kinds of colors together by using your 3 or 4 metallic colors like that. And I love that effect. That's a great effect. And then Dyna colors, as I mentioned before, I don't know if anybody else out there is a sparkle person, but I love sparkle. In all its, whether it's sparkle glitter that I love to put in resin, or whether it's sparkle, like teeny tiny sparkle in a paint like this. But in particular, Pebeo has what they call their Dyna paints, but these would be iridescent paints from other companies. And so you can see they're, for the most part, opaque. This one's a little semi-opaque, right? And then here again, semi-opaque. But I love the way they look against the black. You see that? So it can be very helpful. Now, this is not on a canvas board. This happens to be on paper. But what I did with the paper was I put gesso across the top here in white and gesso across the bottom here in black in order to prepare the paper surface to receive acrylic paint, just like a canvas would. Okay, so that's the trick. If you're using paper, you want to go ahead and seal it up first with a gesso or even a layer of white paint. Like for instance, here I have the Artist Loft from Michaels white paint, and feel free to use a white paint like this, and which is get the more inexpensive paint, and then cover your paper or your canvas with a white paint first to start out with. Now, another thing when you go to color mixing, these are the types of experiments that I do. Now, this is a canvas pad. So here, yes, you can buy already gessoed canvas in a pad, and they're loose sheets like this. So this is one of the Dyna colors, but it's with the pale yellow, which is one of my favorite yellows to mix with. What do they call it? They call it bright yellow, but it's very pale. It has a lot of white in it. And so I like to mix that with various types of green, and this happens to be one of the shimmer colors, and I wanted to see what the effect was. Well, this yellow color is opaque, so it gives us a certain finish, and it even knocks down that shine from the shimmer colors. Now here it is, mixing the fluorescent with the exact same color of the shimmer. The fluorescents are transparent, so you maintain most of your shimmer there. But wow, the punch of that color is quite a bit more bright when you're using the fluorescent yellow like this than when you use the pale yellow like this. But I'm always doing these experiments because I was thinking of like painting a mermaid or a water scene. And so I wanted to see what the difference was between these to see which feel I wanted to go for. And this is the feel that I chose, but you know, we're all individual, so you may choose something different. All right, let me set these aside so they don't get dirty. And I think that we may be, okay, one other thing that I want to tell you about the paint. The, um, the paints here, besides the light fastness that's on the side here, they also have the pigment numbers. So right here, and often on tubes, so this is the Pembio, but here is a tube of golden paint. This is acrylics. And also on the tube here, it says pigments, and then it lists the pigments. So a better quality paint is going to list the pigments. Like a kid's paint or a hobby paint is not likely to mention what pigments are in it. Actually, this one is the Liquitex, and it also has right back here, it says the pigments on it. Now, the way pigments work is P stands for pigment, and then you have your various color families. So PY is pigment yellow, okay? And so this one, does this one say PY74 is the yellow that's in here, and PW6. So PW6 is white. The W stands for white. And so this is, I know because this has a white in it that it's going to be semi-opaque or opaque, and with my yellow. And then of course, if you look at this one, I love this because it's very pale and mossy. And so this is going to have a white in it as well. Yep, guess what? PW6, the same. And then a PY42, that means Y is yellow. This one has a PBR, so that's a brown, and a PG, which is a green. So there's a whole series of pigments that make up that beautiful mossy green color. But it can be helpful when you are going from one brand to another brand. If you know you're looking for a yellow or a red that has a particular pigment in it, that's how you can figure that out, is by looking on the side and finding the pigment code, which you may not have been aware of if you weren't like a color nerd. Those are standardized colors, so you can look up on the internet, oh, what is, PY74? And it'll tell you what the chemical composition, the basic chemical composition of it is. Now, the way that companies that manufacture acrylic get different colors is sometimes they will heat the colors. And so heating the colors will give them variations, maybe a little stronger to a little weaker of that color, that chemical color, and then they combine it with their acrylic binder and white if they're putting white in it. So it's interesting, the whole theory of color. And I kind of a color nerd, so I like watching color manufacturers, people who make their own colors, talk about their colors. As a matter of fact, I have in my shopping cart on an art supply company a couple of colors that are unique to a particular paint line, but that's because I was listening to the owner of the company talk about their formula, and then I was like, oh, I have to have that. Right? Okay, let me see what we have going on here. I want to be sure I put the right information down before we get started. Another thing, of course, that we're going to be using today is we're going to be using watercolor paper. Have you taken a factory tour for paint? Crazy Junk Art, I have, and it was for R&F encaustic wax paints. So they took us through. They have a studio, a teaching studio at their factory in New York. And so I visited there multiple times. I got my advanced instructor training from R&F Paints. I did the initial instructor training and the advanced instructor training for hot wax paints. Those are called encaustic paints. And they were kind enough to take us for a visit through their factory, and that was pretty awesome. In storage, I have a bunch of encaustic paints, but you know, at this time of year, it's very hot in Florida, so it is not the best time of year to be using hot wax paints right now. Oh, okay, so we have, as I was starting to say, we have watercolor paint, yeah. I'm sorry, watercolor paper. And watercolor paper you can use with acrylics. What I like about watercolor paper is that it's thick. And so I want to use a thick paper if I'm going to be doing mixed media artwork or doing acrylic painting. I want that watercolor paper. And then the other thing that we're going to use is this palette pad. So this is like shiny palette paper, and that's where I squeeze out and mix my paints onto. Of course, we're going to be using palette knives to mix and apply paint. And then we're going to be using all different kinds of brushes as well to get different brush strokes. And then there's one last tool that I like to use. This is a paint tube crimper. So as your paint starts to be used, to get the maximum out of it, you put the end of your tube inside here and you grip it, and then you crank it. And when you crank it, it pushes the paint up inside the tube. So, and then it leaves this really funky like marks on here. But yeah, this is a great way to be able to get everything out of your tubes, is to have a tube crimper like that. All right. And then Crazy Junk Art said, is there anything that you don't do? Well, when it comes to paint, I'm kind of crazy. What I have not tried yet is the water soluble wax paints. Yep, it's a thing, which is so crazy. So they do have a beeswax base, which, you know, for most people, beeswax is not water soluble, right? But with the miracle of chemistry, there is a company, I think they're called Krita Color, and they have produced a paint that is beeswax based, so it would be considered a type of encaustic, but it is water soluble. It's crazy. I've known about it for a couple of years, but I haven't tried it yet. I haven't gotten my hands on it. I was introduced to it, maybe 5 years ago when I was over in Germany for a big show called Paper World and Art World. And so that's where I saw it. I'm like, what? And I researched it a little bit, and it was crazy. But I haven't gotten my hands on that one yet. Oh, all right. So we are going to go up over the table and just look. So here is my Instagram handle. It's Dietz Art. My Facebook, my website. So when I'm on Whatnot, I sell my finished artwork like I showed you earlier. For instance, these greeting cards, right? That I paint or a collage. And so those are what I sell on Whatnot. But if you want to buy particular paints, like for instance, these paints, I don't stock the paints. I don't sell the paints. What I do is I send you on my website to supply links. And there are places under supply links where you can scroll through and click. For instance, the Pebeo Studio acrylics are on there. And then you can peruse what's available online and be able to purchase it that way. But at least I'm sending you in the right direction on my website. Plus, on my website, I have articles that I do, usually based upon the lives that I do. And then I put links to individual items within those articles as well. And, you know, you're welcome to send me questions or comments either on the articles or just through the contact page there as well, if you like. And then here I am on Whatnot. If for some reason you are over on YouTube and you'd like to pop over to Whatnot, you can use the QR code at the top of the screen, or you can go to the link in the description and bring you over to Whatnot. And then if you are on YouTube, if you're on Whatnot, there's a lovely feature called Tips. And so while you're doing a show, people can throw you tips, and I always appreciate tips. But if you're on YouTube and you'd like to throw me a tip, I would also appreciate that. And you're going to go to Ko-fi, so ko-fi.com. And then Tristina Dietz Art is my username on coffee.com. So buy me a coffee. That would be amazing. All right, let me see if we can bring this. Oh, yes, we can bring that up a little closer for you. Okay, awesome. Let's see, yes. And again, if you weren't here earlier, this is the inspiration for the art that we're doing today is Vicki McGrath Art. She's out of Chicago, Illinois, and she will be linked in the description of the video on YouTube. So I encourage you to go check her out, and if you can afford it or you find her artwork as compelling as I do, then buy a piece of her artwork. That would be awesome. Artists helping artists, right? So when I was going to do this piece of art, which was inspired by Vicky's figs right here, then I went and there are several copyright-free websites where you can find imagery to use for your website, for your artwork. One of them is Unsplash, unsplash.com, and another one is Pixabay, that's Pixabay, and another one is Pexels, P-E-X, it's either P-E-X-E-L-S or P-E-X-I-L-S. And you can find copyright-free imagery there. So, for instance, for these figs, what I did was I went to Unsplash and I looked for fig images. And here are some of the images that I found. And what I do is I just look through what's available that is copyright free on the website, and I get lots of imagery. So here's another one right here. And then here is another page right here. So I wanted both, like, what does the fruit look like when it's whole? What does it look like when it's sliced? What do the leaves of the fruit look like? Because, for instance, if you see Vicky's artwork here, one of them, she just has the fruit, and the other one, she has the fruit and some of the leaves that go with the fruit. So I found that very compelling. And so I did my research on Unsplash in this case, but I use Pixabay all the time as well. And the other nice thing is these are images of the actual fruit, so photographs, that you can also find on Pixabay. There is a vector, I think it's called vector, so it's either drawing or vector. And you can click on that heading, and instead of getting photographs like these, you end up getting drawings. So sometimes you just want a drawing from that somebody has done, or a vector image that someone has done, if you're looking for something that's a little more cartoony and not as realistic. Now, my painting is definitely not realistic. It's what I call impressionistic. So I want to get the impression of the fig, but I'm not going for realism. I don't want it to look exactly like the fig. I'm not a realist. I'm an impressionist when I paint. So that was figs, and that's what I did. I actually combined, if you look at this image, you see there's one fig back here, another one leaning over, and this one facing on. And so that's what I use for my composition here. So just because there's another fig part right here, you don't have to use that. And I may also want to use a quarter of a fig here instead of a half. And I have images to help me with that. So that's how I always pull multiple images, and then I base my composition on different parts and pieces of those images. Now, for the oranges, that if you saw the artwork that was on the promo, the introduction for this workshop is oranges, right? So here is my oranges image. This is in a spiral notebook of good quality paper, right? So it's the acrylic paints again right here. And this is another version. This one happens to have a whole orange. Let me take it out of there so it's not so shiny. So this one has a whole orange and then a half and a quarter right there. So you want to use these reference pictures to come up with ideas of how to lay out your artwork. So for instance, this is a picture of a lemon right here that I got off of Unsplash. So notice there's a whole lemon in the background, and then there's a lemon facing this direction. And that's what I was looking for, was something that would face inwards from the left-hand side. So I said, ooh, okay, I like that composition. And then here there's the other half, but I didn't want a half here. I like the look of the quarter. So if you look here, can you see the quarters right here and the quarter right here? So that's how I pull pictures. Even though this is a lemon, I used the concept of the composition of the three in this one here. So the 1, 2, 3, and instead of doing it as lemons, I did it as oranges. So in order to do it as oranges, I looked up oranges and saw, what do oranges look like from the slice of the half? So this one is facing this way, and of course in my artwork I wanted it facing that way. So I used this as a reference to see where my shadows were and see the shaping of it here. But when I put it on my artwork, I faced it in the other direction. And then what does the orange look like when it has a leaf on it? What does that leaf look like? Here's another image with the quarters right there looking from the top. So that's the type of research that I do in order to find interesting imagery to paint. Here is one last one, and I just adore this right here with all the different, you've got the lemons, the limes, the oranges, and the grapefruits. I just think that looks amazing, and that would be a lot of fun to paint. So that was citrus and focusing on citrus. And then I thought today what we would do is a composition similar to this. So it's very clean, simple, but what does it have on it? A blueberry, which I love to paint blueberries. And I haven't painted a strawberry yet, but there's a strawberry that we can follow. And then this is a little raspberry over here. So I think rather than a raspberry, I would put another blueberry over there and just do a strawberry and 2 blueberries on a cute little plate and a beautiful background. So that's what I had intended for today. Oh, I know. Instead of 2 blueberries, I thought, let's do a half of a strawberry. So you see the image here of a half of a strawberry instead of the raspberry. And then here's another image that has the sliced strawberries in it. So you can see what the half of the strawberry looks like with the greenery at the top, which I thought was really exciting. And so that's the way that you can do research, and then as an artist, synergize the information together in order to create your own interesting composition. So let's I'm going to put these away so that they stay clean. Right? One of the things I love about working with acrylic paints and layering is you can get a lot of texture in there. So let me see if, like right in this orange right here, there is so much texture in there from doing the multiple layers. I just love it. You might be able to see it more easily in this one because of I used a palette knife like this to go over the top with that yellow, and so you can really see the texture there and how the color picks up the texture, right? Fun, fun, fun. That's why I love the layering of the acrylics so much. Okay, this one had a cover. Yes, here it is. I'm like, where'd it go? All right, here we go. We'll put this one away. Now, did you have a special request, the folks that are in the stream, did you have a special request for one of the images or the fruit? And I'll be happy to focus on the fruit that you want me to. I just had to, of course, do some ahead research and pick out a fruit that I would be happy painting if there wasn't a particular suggestion. So we have strawberries, we have figs, and we have citrus. You just let me, if there's something special. I like the lemons or the strawberries. Thank you, Crazy Junk Art. So in terms of the strawberries, do you like something where there's the half strawberry and the full strawberry? Like I said, I kind of like the idea of a half of a strawberry, a blueberry, and a whole strawberry. Yes, the half, right? The half. I know the halves are interesting because they have this like white core to them right here. And I really like the white core on those. Okay, so this is what I do, start to finish kind of when I am designing something. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna look at my work here. Now, one of the things that I could do is I could put a piece of tracing paper underneath this and trace around. As a matter of fact, let me show you how I do that. Let's see. Right here next to me, of course, I always have to have my tracing paper. The thing is, I want to go a little bit bigger than the plate. So let me come over here. A whole, a half, and a blueberry. Perfect. So I want the plate to be slightly larger. And so I'm going to, instead of I'm going to use a pen for this. Instead of running my pen right where the plate is, I'm actually going to go about a half an inch or so outside of the plate and just follow it around like this. And then that will give me a larger plate than what's here, right? And then we need the bump for the strawberry. And then we're going to come back around here. Okay, so that's approximately what the plate's going to look like. I just wanted to get an idea. Hey there, Hazy. What is it? Hazy Ames Paper and Crate. Welcome in, welcome in. So that was, this is just tracing paper. It has graphite on one side, and then you lay the graphite down. And if you just trace over your image, it'll transfer it onto your canvas or onto your paper, either one. Okay, so we've got a basic image here. That means the nice thing about using the graphite paper like that is that you can erase it. So if I needed to erase part of this, like let's say the strawberry is going to be a little bit bigger, I can go in and use an eraser and erase the lines if I need to. Also, what watercolorists will do is they will use that tracing paper, do the tracing, and then go over the whole thing with their eraser so that they still get a light line showing there for when they're painting over top of it with watercolor. Because sometimes with the watercolor, you don't want that image underneath to be too bold. Okay, so we're just gonna, it's probably almost impossible for you to see, but I can still see the line here. And the beautiful thing is because we're using acrylic, we are not gonna need to worry about these lines because we're gonna go right over top of them with paint, right? So let me move these out of the way. And I'm gonna just use a graphite pencil here, and we're gonna draw these elements onto here. So I'm gonna do the little blueberry over here, like that. Just get the basic idea. What I'm trying to do is just get a basic idea of the positioning of things. And then the strawberry is going to be up here. So the strawberry sort of looks like, remember, I need to do the strawberry a little bit bigger than what it is here because I expanded the plate, didn't I? So if I put my picture up there, then I can see, the really neat thing is that there's a stem sticking out. And then we have a few leaves here. And you don't have to worry about getting this just right because, like I said, there's no crying in acrylic. It's super easy to change later if you decide that you need to. Okay, so that's the top of it, and I'm not going to worry too much about it because I'm covering it over with paint. And then we're going to bring the strawberry right here and down. And this is pretty rounded right here. And then we're going to bring it from here down and try to meet up the lines right there. Oh, cutie patootie. And then the other that we want to do is one of these. So we're going to put it over here. And it's going to come this direction here. So we're going to bring it around. I'm looking at this picture right here. Ah, it's up in front of me. Good, you can see it from there as well. I'm going to bring it. Nope. See, it's going to be too close to the blueberry, so I need to bring it out just a little bit more. And I will bring it out this way just a little bit more. And down. This is really where your power of observation comes in handy, right? It helps. Okay. Bigger. The nice thing is if you only lightly erase your lines, you can see where the one was that you just did, and then you can go out and around it. Like this, and up, and then, so this is, you're seeing the process of exactly what I go through live and in person when I'm designing something. Okay, there's going to be a dark area down below here as well. So I did the edge, and then I did the darker area down below. And then here, we're going to do this coming off here and some coming off here. And we actually have a stem right here, which is nice to see the stem. And then we have another leaf right here. And another little leaf coming up in the back there. Okay, so you don't have to get too fancy. And what you see that I'm doing here is I'm actually using two different images in order to create my base image. So there we're going to have a whole strawberry, a half a strawberry, and a blueberry. So what I like to do is I like to paint in my fruit first, and then I will do all the background elements afterwards. And that way I can really focus on the fruit and making sure that I get the fruit the way that I want it before I put the background in. Okay, this is going to make me nuts. I've got to bring this down a little bit more. Okay, there we go. But the lines underneath here do not matter. They don't matter because they're going to be covered up with paint. Let's start out with the blueberry. That's my most fun one to do. And so just like the blueberries in here, can you see those blueberries? And then the little shadows, the little drop shadows there, and the little, see the white right there, the highlight. So what we're going to do with the blueberry, there are 3 tones generally that you work with a painting. You've got your mid-tone, your darks, and your lights. So what I like to do is I like to paint in the mid-tone first. So for a blueberry, we have a couple of options. Here we've got, and see where this one says it's opaque? It says opaque right there. And then this one is transparent. I can tell by the little clear block right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, if you look at these two, you can see this one's a darker blue and this one is a lighter blue. But I would consider this a mid-tone blue. So let's put the mid-tone blue out onto our palette. Ooh, let me bring it over here so you can see. So there's the mid-tone blue. And I'm going to use, in this case, a brush. Now, I picked my brush based on the size of what I'm working with. And in this case, the blueberry is smaller, so I'm going to use either a smaller flat or a smaller round. Do you see those? Small flat or small round. In this case, I want to challenge myself and use the flat. So first I'm getting paint on it. And then I'm not just getting paint on it, I'm flattening the brush so I have a nice flat top to it. And that's where I'm going back and forth, back and forth. So now what I'm going to do is just fill this in. And I'm noticing that there's a lot of skipping, what's called dry brush. You see that right there where there's a lot of skipping going on? So in order to get more of a flat finish to this, I'm going to dip my brush into some water. Ooh, I better have a paper towel in my hand. Okay, so I'm just dipping it in a little bit of water, and that's so I can get the paint to flow a little bit more over this watercolor paper. So here we go. That helps it to flow off of the brush. I'm just getting the shape, the general shape of the blueberry in a mid-tone. Okay. So I just got a whole bunch more over here. There are two things I can do with that. I can either try to clean it up a little bit, but what I find with good quality acrylics is as you try to clean it, often you can make it worse. So a lot of the times I just take white. So let me get some white on here. Often I'll just take a little bit of white and paint that little bit of white over top of that area to get the shape that I want. There we go. So where I had gone over just a little bit, I just corrected it. Right? Now the blueberry looks a little more round. And when you're putting in these first layers, you don't have to worry too much about it being just right, because you're going to perfect your design with subsequent layers. Okay. So that is our mid-tone. I want it to be just a little bit rounder. Come on, you can do it. Get it a little bit rounder there. Okay. That's the mid-tone. And then the next thing that I do is I put in my darkest color. So what I want to do for my dark is I want to grab this one, which is a darker version of blue, much darker blue. And instead of using this flat brush now, I'm going to switch to the round brush because I want to put it in certain places here. So this is a darker blue. And so I have to consider my light source. Where is my light coming from as I'm painting? Here, you can see that there is a highlight right here on the strawberry. So what that means is the light is coming from over here. If that's the case, the lightest part of the blueberry will be on the right-hand side, and the darkest part of the blueberry will be on the left-hand side. So if we consider that, I'm going to drop some dark, extra dark in over here. Again, you don't have to be too perfect with it because you're going to be messing around with it a lot. So there's the mid-tone and the dark. And then I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white to some of the dark to lighten it a little bit. Can you see that? I mean, yep, you can. Okay. So now I have a mid-range, but it's not the same as the other one. And I'm going to come in here with this mid-range so that my dark is flowing over into the mid-range. And then I'm going to add more white to that same color. And that's going to give me my lightest lights. But still in the same color family, right? And this is impressionistic. We're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to have fun. We want to have fun. Now, there's also along the top, there's a little bit of light because it's round. So the light also hits this area over here. So we've got a little bit of roundness in this area. Now also in the back over here, you know how there's like the little bit of, when you have a blueberry, there are those little bits on top from the flower part of it. So this is the time to drop a little bit of that into there. And so that you can see that little bit of the top. Very impressionistic, but there's a blueberry. Now, as your acrylics dry, the color could change. And that's in particular due to if you're using a transparent paint. The transparent paint will take on some of the color that's underneath it. So if the color underneath it is your white paper, well, then it's going to take on a lighter appearance potentially. If it's a dark paper underneath it, it could bring up a darker appearance. So you don't really know what your final look is going to be until this blueberry dries. So that's why I like to do one coat very quickly, just have fun with it, and then come back after it's dry and then add a few more little more spots into it. Okay, so I'm dipping my brush in water like this, and then getting rid of most of the pigment before I clean my brush, and that way my water will stay cleaner longer and all this pigment will not go down into the water supply. It'll go into your trash bin and be burned. That's the better way to handle pigments like that. Okay, so that I got most of the color out of there on the paper towel. There we go. Now, let's do the same with the strawberries. So with the strawberries, we're going to want to be working with some a mid-tone red. And we have a couple of different types of reds here. This is the cadmium red hue, and we have the naphthol carmine, or some companies call it naphthol red. So as you can see, this red is considered to be bluer than this red, which is, so this would be a warmer tending toward orange, the cadmium, and this one is bluer tending toward a cool, right? So we want to work with the naphthol. Now notice that the naphthol is transparent, but that's okay. That just means after it dries, we're going to have to see what we have. So let me put out some of the naphthol right here. And, oh, notice I have blue on here, so I have to get rid of the blue on my my flat brush. I like to use the flat brushes when I'm first just putting in my base colors because I like the angles that the brush gives me. And it gets you away from all the detail when you're using a smaller brush. Okay, whew, there's still a lot of blue in there. This blue is very pervasive. Let's see. Okay, that got most of it out of there. All right, so that was that. Now it's coming up clear. Yay! I'm going to get another paper towel. So now what we want to do is we're just going to lay in what? We're going to lay in our base color, right? So we're going to lay in our mid-tone. And the top here is green, so that's why I'm not putting anything there yet. We're just doing the mid-tone of the strawberry. Okay. I appreciate you being here with me on a Sunday afternoon. Thank you. for joining. If you're over on YouTube, feel free to come over to Whatnot, where we're going to be doing giveaways and the art auction afterwards. Okay. Oh, nice. Nice. And we're also going to put in the red portion of the half. So after I get this done, we will go look at that one. Okay. Nice, beautiful, beautiful mid-tone for the strawberry. I'm happy already. All right, so let's look at the half of a strawberry and see where we have red. We have red all around the edges here and white in the middle. Now, it's okay to put red mid-tone all over that and then come back in later with white, because the beautiful thing about acrylic is the white is opaque and the white will sit on top. So we can go ahead and put in the mid-tone all around. Okay, here we go. I'm even going to put the mid-tone in this area down here where it's a little bit shaded, the bottom part of that. I'm going to go ahead and put the mid-tone in there. This is how you can quickly render items, render pictures, is drop it in that mid-tone to start and then build everything else on top with acrylic. Hello, hello to everybody who's over on Whatnot and YouTube this evening. Now, I just dipped my brush in water because sometimes you find, especially if you're working on paper like I am, the watercolor paper, it wants to catch onto the brush and give you that, what's called the dry brush look. So just dip your brush in a little bit of water if you need it to flow. Okay, there we go. And I don't worry too much about the very edges where there's a little bit. Can you see a little bit of dry brush there? I'll move the brush out of the way. There's a tiny bit there where it's skipped over top of the paper, but that's okay. Not to worry. All right. Great. Now it looks like I want to give this just a little bit more of a pointy end to it. Is that just me? And the beautiful thing is you don't even have to follow a picture like this. You can just use your mind and come up with whatever you want to. That's the beautiful thing about painting. We don't have to copy Mother Nature, although it is nice to have a an image to go from, doesn't it? Isn't it? Okay, let's get the red off of here. Now I'm looking at the blueberry to see what the status of the blueberry is, and the blueberry is not yet dry. I don't know if you can see that in the light, but there's a little bit of a shine right there, so it's not quite dry yet. And I want to, it's not quite as round as I want it to be on this side, but this side is dry. So I'm going to go ahead and dip this brush in water. And I'm just going to fix that little area right there. So I want a sort of a mid-tony. There we go. Now it's wound. Yes, I love that it's wound. Okay, and what I've also noticed is because I was combining the blue and the white, there's no real highlight there. There's the mid-tone, a light, and a dark, but now I want to stick the just white on there because I want it to really show off. I want it to show off right here and right here, those two areas. I want just a little bit of white. So I'm going to take some white here. There's still a tiny bit of blue on the brush, but that's okay. It's mostly white. And I'm going to put a little bit of white back in here because that's sort of showing. And then I'm going to put a little bit of white down in here. So now that's going to give it the feel. It's going to give it some dimension. You can see right there in the camera that you've got some dimension going. The interesting thing is that when you're painting, there are principles of painting that come into play that when you're visually looking at something close up, as I am working on it, it doesn't look the same as when you pull back or maybe take a picture of it and look at it. So periodically while I'm painting, let's say I finish the 2 strawberries and the blueberry, I will, before I put in the background, I'll take a picture of it and look at what I notice. Is there enough depth and dimension in my pieces as I'm working, or do I need to add more white or add more dark? So that's how you're constantly pushing and pulling your lights and your darks. And hey, if you start to hear my air conditioner rattling loudly, let me know and I will turn it off, because it's kind of hot here in Florida, but I know the sound can be annoying. Okay, so the blueberry, I would say that the blueberry is, if not done, most of the way done. Yay! Not the shadow, but the blueberry itself. Because afterwards we're going to have to pop our shadows in, right? Now on this strawberry right here, notice that there's a highlight here and here. So there's a big highlight here and a little highlight over here. And then just a little bit of a reflection from the plate underneath here. So that's what we're going to work with right now, is the some of that highlight. So I have white on my palette still, and I'm going to use the round brush. I'm going to get a little bit of the white and a little bit of the what was it, naphthol red, and I'm going to put in some lights right now. So my lights are over here. I've got some light. And just don't worry too much about your brush strokes. Just get the idea in, because you'll be able to perfect it later. And then there's, believe it or not, a little bit of lightness reflecting from the plate right down here. Okay, and then a tiny bit back in here. So this is where it can be helpful to have a reference to look at. So I've got it there, a tiny bit here, and a little bit down here. So that's what I just put in. And let's see, it needs to go just a little bit more here. Now I'm going to come in with my darks. Now, how do I get a darker color than my midtone? Well, what I want to do is I want to go toward purple. So you have a blueberry here and a red strawberry here. So naturally the color that's in between the two is going to tend toward purple, because you've got a reflection of that blue on the red. And what do blue and red together make? They make purple. So what I'm going to do, and I'm noticing some of this is starting to dry over on my palette. So I have a spray bottle, and periodically I spray my palette to be sure that I keep my paints moist as I'm working. Okay, so I'm going to create a kind of a purple. So here I'm going to bring my magenta or my naphthol red and just a little bit of purple, blue, because that blue can really overwhelm. I actually want it to be a little more purpley. And a little bit more of this. So this is what I end up doing, is just color mixing on the fly. And now I've got a purple color, but I don't think it's going to be dark enough. But let's put it in and see what happens. Because remember that if we don't know exactly what this purple color is going to look like until it dries. So I know what it looks like on my palette over here. It looks like a magenta, lilac-y kind of purple, but I won't know exactly what it does until it dries. So I'm just going to lay it in here in the areas where I see darkness. And there's no crying in acrylic, because I can just come back later and change that, can I? And also there's something called glazing that you can do with transparent colors that I often will glaze at the end, and that will give me the effect that I want. Okay, so I've got my mid-tone. I want to lay a little bit of dark down in here, right where it's going to touch the table. Needs to be a little bit darker. Okay. And a little bit around here. So that's pretty much the darker areas right there. A little bit more darkness over here. What we're trying to do is create the impression of roundness since we're on a flat surface. Okay, and most of this here is mid-tone with just a tiny bit of the dark. All right, so like I said, we're not going to know what that's going to look like until it dries. In here, got a little bit of that purple down there. There you go. It looks weird right now. You see that? Where you've got the lights and you've got the darks, but we're going to be putting more, layering more. The layering helps if you've got transparent paints. So this one, the Napthol Crimson, is a transparent paint. And so if we put a transparent layer of Napthol over top of that dark, the light's going to go through it and give us the undertone of the darkness that we'll be looking for. Okay, and then there are a few little dots on here. There are dots where the seeds are. You see the little dots, the dark dots right there? So on here, I'm going to make a couple of dark dots. And that's where the seeds are going to go. You see the dots? There are the dots. Okay, I'm going to bring the dots over here as well. That's having a brush like this helps for something like this for the dots. Because there are seeds all over this thing. Did you know that you can just cut the top of this off, the top of the strawberry, together with a little bit of the seeds and stick it in the ground and water it, and you can end up with strawberry plants, just like that. Yep, it's amazing. Thank you, Mother Nature. Okay. So what I wanted to do was just create the dots all over it so that we get the feel for where the seeds are going to be. And then let's let that dry and come over here. So this one. And so this one looks like this. We need to create that V right there. And it's a little bit darker on the outside. So let's, I'm going to do the darker on the outside first with that little bit of purple that I have here. And it's just looking like this. This looks like where the little base of the seeds are coming in, like that. And then we'll go around here like this. Oh, it's starting to get dry, so I'm going to dip my brush just a tiny bit to keep it moving. Now remember, the under part right here is actually underneath, so I'm not going all the way to the edge here. I'm leaving a little bit, and I'll show you up close in just a moment what I mean by that. Underneath here, that's the underside of the strawberry, so we don't want to bring those marks all the way out. We want to leave some space for the underside of the strawberry where it's actually going to be darker. So let me put a little bit of that purple here, and I'm going to come in and do the underside, which is a little bit darker. So the underside here is a little bit darker. There we go. Nice. And then we want that V, which has kind of a pink color to it. So we've got a little bit of pink here, right? Let's lay in that pink right here. Comes along like this. Interesting. Okay. We've got the pink part of it. And then we've got the lightest part of it up at the top here. So we want to add a whole bunch more white and have it almost be completely white. Almost, just a hint of the pink. So we're going to do that up here. And I'm just looking at the picture. And there's this interesting, I want the dry brush effect as it comes down. I want this to skip, because if you look here, you see how that's spindly inside there? So that's what I want. I want to mimic the fact that it's sort of spindly in there. And let's bring it here. And now I've got it a little bit lighter even. What I like is having that darkness back behind it. So the mid-tone that's behind it, love that. Now the pink is getting a little bit deep, and that's because as it's drying, it's looking a little deeper. So I want to add a little bit more white to my pink, and then sort of pull that in here. Layer upon layer upon layer, right? There we go. So now we're sort of blending those bits into there. All right. And in between these dark areas, there are some lighter areas. So that would be a little bit lighter than midtones. So that's the Naphthol Carmine plus a little bit of white, just a little bit, sort of bleeding into here. Like I said, this is very impressionistic. I'm not a realist. If you came here for realism, well, you're not in the right place, right? But if you love impressionist stuff, then you are in the right place. Okay, there we go. So now it's beginning to come up there, where you can see the white in the center and the variation of colors there. All right. So now let's come back to this one, which is, it's a miracle. It's dry already. I just love that. Okay, and so I'm going to go back to this picture right here. And I want to lighten just this area right in here, just a little bit more. So that is a little lighter with a little more pink and white to get the lightest light right there. And we're just going to go around those little areas where we're going to be putting the seeds in, right? And what I'm trying to do here is also sort of feather the edges so that there aren't hard lines where we go from the lighter pink to the darker area there. Okay, nice. All right, so it's beginning to show more like a strawberry right there. And I'll add just a little bit more down in here for some definition. And also to separate some of this with the dark purple underneath. Oh, there we go. There goes the headsets. We got that dark under. Right, let me turn the air conditioner off real quickly. So here's where I'm building the lighter color, the little bit lighter color on top of the darker color. But the darker color is still going to show through that done, and then I will show you. So the fact that I'm using a little bit lighter color here, you can still see the dark underneath it. You see how it's building up some dimension that way? So pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. All right. Now, at this point, I'm going to go to the green on the top, and I can see, now we're going to use, we're going to create a green, so we're going to use some of the yellow here. This is actually an opaque yellow, but that's okay. That's good. And then some of the blue, right, that we still have on our palette. We have the blue, and then let's take some of the yellow. And we have a nice light green here. I want it even a little bit lighter. So I'm going to add a little bit of white and even a little more white to get it even lighter still. So right next to, well, the stem is a light green, and right next to the stem here, right next to the bottom of the leaves, is rather light. I'm looking at that green going, oh, that looks too blue. So I'm going to have to add a little bit more yellow to it. So there's always adjust, adjust, adjust. And I adjust right on the palette. There, that's better. It needs to be more yellowy. It was looking too blue-green. Okay. So the area at the bottom is sort of a light green. And then as you go out, it becomes a darker green, and it actually also becomes brown on the very edges, but I probably won't do the brown. I'll just do the darker green. So let's see this one. Yep, it's like sort of lighter green here. As we move out, and the stem is a light green. There we go. The stem is a light green. And here, the base of that one. So we're just building the basic light green in here. And then we're going to bring a darker green in. So the darker green was where we just mixed the yellow and the blue. So I'm actually going to grab a little bit more blue and a little bit more yellow to get a darker green. This is sort of my mid-tone green. And I'm going to end up putting a darker green on top. Well, more yellow. Come on. Come on. More green. You really have to play around with it to get the tones that you want. And more or less at the ends here. It gets darker at the ends, which is unusual because normally you think that a leaf would be lighter at the ends, but when I'm looking at these strawberries, it's not that way. What I'm doing here with my brush is I'm turning it so I can get a little sharper tip to it, and that helps me to place the paint more where I want it. So I'm constantly turning my brush to get that better tip. Okay, and because the paint's not flowing, I'm dipping it just a tiny bit in water to get it to flow just a little bit more. A little more yellow. So this is a transition green right here. Sort of a mid-tone green, and it's helping it to bring it together. Okay. So like I said, we're being impressionists. We're not necessarily trying to be perfect here. We're not doing photorealism. Okay, there we go. Into that one. Turn, turn, turn. Into this one. A little bit more. See, it's having trouble coming off the brush, so get the brush wet. Get it wet, get it wet. And that way it'll flow better. Okay, and this right there. There we go. Now, I have not been watching the comments, so let me see if there were any questions. Nope, no questions there. No questions. I don't see any on YouTube either, so that's good. So let me just, I'm adding a little shadow to the stem here. Now, I don't worry too much about the very edges because when I put the background in, I fix the edges, okay? So I don't worry about it being um, not perfect. Okay, there we go. And oh my goodness, they look like strawberries. It's not quite there yet, almost. But this one's looking much more like a strawberry here. And what I want to do now with this strawberry is that I want to glaze it. Now what glazing is taking a transparent color. So remember I said that this is a transparent color. You can see the little block is white right there. That means it's transparent. So that's this color right here. And I'm going to take some of it and I'm going to add a lot of water to it. Ooh, I didn't get all the green out. So what I want to do is I want the transparent color and I want lots of water. Let me do this so you can see it better. So you see the water, it's very watery. And what that does, even more water, that's going to create what's called a glaze. And people who paint in oil paint are very familiar with glazes, but you can absolutely glaze with watercolor. I mean, with, and of course with watercolor, but with acrylics as well. You just want to have lots of water there on your brush. And now I'm going to brush over top of the whole strawberry with this glaze. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull together all the colors and make it look cohesive. And it pushes those highlights and those low lights back into the background. All right. Love it. Now, I am going to go back in and I'm going to put more highlights in because when you glaze, it tends to push the color back, but it helps to unify the colors on your piece. So here I'm just going to glaze the outside. I'm not going to glaze the white part on the inside because I want the white part to stay very light. I am going to glaze the bottom here that's darker. There we go. Sometimes I will glaze multiple times also. So I might let that glaze layer dry and then come back in and glaze again. But it's nice to know that you can just go, you can glaze at any time to unify the color all together. Okay, let's put some more highlight on here. No, actually, we're going to put the seeds on here and then we're going to put the highlight around the seeds. So the seeds are brown. How do we get brown? Ooh, you know what would be more fun than brown? Why don't we do this darker gold? Remember I was talking about there are two golds, at least in Pebio's line. There are many different types of gold out there, but Pebio has two different golds. It's 352 and 350. So 350 is what they call precious gold, and that is your more warm or antique gold. And then there's just gold. So let's use the warmer one, this darker one, to put the seeds on. So I'm going to bring that up here. Don't need much. Let's do this. So now I actually want a smaller brush than this. Then off to the side here, I have a brush holder. So that's what's keeping my brushes separated. If you would like a brush holder, you can find one on my website under the supply links. Um, there's a section for brush holders. Let me charge up my headphones here for later. Okay, so now we're going to use even a smaller brush. So I have a teeny tiny little one here. I'm going to start by getting it wet, and then I'm rolling it. I roll my brushes a lot in order to try to get the tips to be as straight as possible. So I'm going to get a little bit of paint on it and roll it. And now I have a nice point. And so I'm going to drop in. Why not use gold, right? For my seeds. Because they're sort of iridescent. Oh, that's fun. So Crazy Junk Art, if you're still with me, you're going to get to play with this gold, because this is the exact, well, no, you have the lighter gold coming to you. Oh, that's fun. That is fun. I'll bring it up and show it to you here in just a second so you can see how fun this is. Looks amazing. So we're just dropping these in, drop the seeds in. It helps to have various size brushes so you can make this happen. This is especially where the glazing can come in handy, because I can put a transparent layer of glaze over some of these seeds if I don't want them all to shimmer so much. You see the shimmer? Oh, so pretty. Now, on this one, there are no seeds showing. There are a few seeds underneath here, but they're dark. They're not sort of light like they are on the surface there. So we won't be putting any over here. And we won't, well, you know what? What the heck? I don't care. Let's do it. I'm just going to put a few little tiny seeds here so that we have a little gold glow underneath there. Why not? It's my painting and I can do whatever I want, right? I'm here. Hi, Crazy Junk Art. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so we're going to do another giveaway because I'm feeling good in the mood. And so let's see. What do I want to give away? Okay, you guys tell me. Nope, I'm not going to do this one yet. So we're looking at, right now, we're looking at the Titan Buff. That's the one I'm going to give away right now. And that is, Titan Buff is a color that is, ooh, okay, where is it? There it is. It's running. So Titan Buff, sometimes if you want to have a color that is muted, sometimes people like to work with muted colors instead of bright colors. So if you want a muted color, instead of adding white, you add Titan Buff, and that will give you a muted color. So that's what's running right now. If you're over on Whatnot, you can participate in the giveaway. If you're on YouTube, I encourage you to either scan the QR code at the top of the screen or go into the description of the video and click on the link, and that will bring you over to Whatnot, to the show, and then you can participate in the giveaway. So that's the one we're giving away right now, and the giveaway is running. So jump on the giveaway if you like. Okay, so these are fun. These are looking good. Now with this one, because I put the glaze on it, that pushed all the colors back, and now I need to bring the highlights back in. So this is actually a small flat brush. So I'm going to get it wet, and then I'm going to go into my whites, and I'm going to pull a tiny bit of the magenta, and I need to get a lighter, a very, very light pink, light pink. Come on, more white. More white. Sometimes you just need more white. Okay, and then we're going to drop in the really, really bright bright highlights in here. So remember, this is painting, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It's better if, in my opinion, it's better if it shows your brush strokes, because that shows the hand of the artist. And people love to see the hand of the artist if they're interested in a piece of artwork from you. Okay, so that was some there. Drop some in over here. So that's bringing in the pink highlights. And a little bit more over here, because there was some here. And there was a tiny bit of lightness down here. Reflection off the plate. Okay, so it's a little bit light right now. I'm looking at it going, oh, it's a little bit light. But you can start to see the development of this is higher or closer to you, and oops, wrong direction. This part is further away from you. You can start to see that. Okay, over here, I need to add some more layers to that white core and a little darker pink. So just building up more layers, building up layers, building up layers. More pink over here and white. Okay, there we go. So I got a little bit of white where I didn't want it. It's helpful to let one layer dry before you go on with another layer, because what I just did was I just dampened that area where I made a mist stroke with my brush, and that helped me to be able to lift it right off because the under layer was already dry. Okay. So now let's do this. Now what I'm seeing here is that I want to do another one of my glazing over top of here, but I think I want to wait just a second. Let me see. Let's see, how's it? Oh, there we go. Sometimes that's just what you need, is a little glaze. There we go. No better. So that's closer looking to this right here. It's looking closer. The top part is not closer, but that will need a lot more work, and I will have to do that off camera in this area right here. Now let me see if I can make a brown, because a lot of times you need brown or muted colors, but you don't have them handy. Not everybody buys a brown, right? So you can mix a brown. Let me put that in there. So the way you can get browns is to look at opposites. Oh, who was it? Okay, Crazy Junk Art won that one too. All right, there you go, Crazy Junk Art. 2 of them coming your way. And all right. So to get the brown in there, I'm going to take some red, a little bit of red, and a little bit of the green. And when you mix the red and the green together, because they're opposites on the color wheel, you're going to get like grays and browns. Let's add a tiny bit of yellow, and that'll turn it into a brown. So now we've got like a sienna color. So let me bring that up closer so you can see. So that turned it into brown. So what I'm going to do with the brown now is I'm just going to pick the brown up with my little square brush like this. And I'm going to drop, let's see where a little bit of brown can go. A little bit of brown can go here on the stem. And I like using the colors that are in the painting in order to create my browns, because that way the brown feels like it belongs to the painting, because it's using the same colors that are in that painting. So what I'm doing is putting a little bit of brown here, because that's what's in the actual piece, or the actual photograph, because there's a little bit of brown on the stem there. comes down in. But I created the brown from the same colors that are right on my palette. So then the brown will make sense with the artwork. Let me bring this brown over here. Put a little bit on the end there, a little bit there. So I'll have to play with this later to get it exactly where I want it. All brown. All right. So now that gives you an idea of how to create the fruit. Let's look at the background. Ooh, you know what? One more thing before we leave the fruit, and that is I just did the wash over top of here, so the lightest light is not the brightest again. So now I'm gonna be brave, and I'm gonna bring in mostly white, and I'm just gonna hit a few spots here with white. And so then it's gonna be, that's gonna be my brightest bright. And remember, if I look at it later and go, ooh, that's like too bright, what am I gonna do? I'm going to come in and I'm just going to give it a wash over top of it again. So I just wanted to put in my highest light. There we go. So I just wanted to put in my brightest bright there. And it's working. It's working. New. How does a giveaway work? Oh, hi there. What is it? Kristy Uninhabited. When she puts up a giveaway, you'll see it on the upper right hand side. Thank you, Crazy Junk Art. Yes, yes. What type of painting do you do? New person? Let's see, what was it again? It was Kristen, Uninhabited. So Kristen, what type of work, artwork do you do? Let me know. And it's Kristy Uninhabited. Okay. Thank you. Yes, I'll show you the giveaway in just a moment. Another giveaway. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is what I do, like for instance, for the plate and for the background here. And that is I mix up a whole bunch of color and then I get to use a miniature artist. Oh, abandoned miniatures. That is so cool. Very, very cool. Kristy, when you do that, do you use acrylic paint for that? I'm curious if you do. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is for the background, well, for the plate. Let's do the plate. So I want to, let's see, what color do I want to do the plate? Here they have the plate white, but that's kind of boring, right? Let's do something not white. And I want to do the background sort of a blue-green. So, well, let me show you how I do the, what color do I want to do the plate, y'all? Oh, before I do the plate real quick, usually what I do is drop in a shadow real quick, and then I do the background. So let's look at, here, I like to use the straight head brush to do that. Am I on Instagram? Yes. Oh, you were talking to Kristy, I do 3D art dioramas. Abandoned miniature house. That is so cool. An abandoned miniature house that you built. That is amazing. Amazing. All right, let's pop in a few shadows here. So in order to create the shadow, usually I create a purple for the shadow. But because this is a strawberry and this is a blueberry, the strawberries are going to have more red in the purple and the blueberry is going to have more blue in the purple, right? So let me do a little bit more blue. I can see I'm almost out. Well, I can use this other blue that's still here, right? Yep. So I have some blue there. And let's see, I have a little bit of the red here. So let's pick up the blue and the red. And not enough red, still too blue. Let's move this up a little bit so you can see it better. Let's put the red, more red out there. Okay, more red in that blue. Come on. Now sometimes it just gets too dang dark. And a dark purple isn't going to give me the effect that I want. So I need to throw a little bit of white in there for showing me how to paint. Oh, good. You love acrylics. Excellent. Well, Kristy, I want you to know that all of my workshops are saved. So they're saved they're saved for how many months? For 3 months on Whatnot in my prior shows. So you can look at past shows and you'll see them. Or you can go on YouTube to my YouTube channel. You just type in Tristina and then art. Tristina, and then the word art, and you'll find me over on YouTube. And with YouTube, these are saved. So you can go back and watch anything that you missed. Okay, so what I'm doing is creating like a muted purple here. And I'm going to use a little bit more blue for the blueberry, for my purple for the blueberry, and then I'm going to throw some more red in it to create the shadow for the strawberries. So our light source is over here, right? That's why this side of the blueberry and this part of the strawberry here is illuminated. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to drop in this sort of purpley gray color right here for the blueberry. And then I'm going to add more of the red. I'm using transparent red here, Naphthol Crimson. Okay, come on. So that's sort of a purpley red purple. Let's get a little bit of white in so that we can actually see the color. We want it to be dark, but not too dark. Okay, so we're gonna bring this around here. And that's sort of dropping in a shadow. I'm making the shadow big right now, but what happens is when I come in and I put the background color in, I play with that shadow and actually make the shadow smaller. And then here, this one. So this is a reddish purple, and this is a bluish purple. Only because the reflection would be different of a blueberry on the plate than a strawberry on the plate. Okay. There we go. So that's our shadows. We can lighten the shadows. Usually what I'll do is put a little bit more white in with it and do a secondary shadow out here. Because, right, our shadows usually have multiple parts to them. They're not always just one dark shadow. Usually there is some variation to it. So that's what I like to do, is I like to put the darkest dark closest and then a lighter shadow outside of it. There we go. Okay. And then I put the background in. All right, so I'm cleaning off my brush. I clean off as much paint as I can in a paper towel before I rinse it in my water. That makes my rinse water last longer, and it keeps more pigment out of the landfills and the aquifer. Okay, here we go. You want as much of it out as possible. Now, for instance, here with the shadows that are from the strawberries, I can take a little bit of that magenta, and again, I can create a wash, right? What does that mean? I just put a lot of water in with it. And then if I want the shadow to look a little bit more strawberry color, I just do a wash over top of that with the magenta color, or the red color, the carmine I was working with, right? If you haven't done washes before, oh my gosh, you guys are going to love these washes. I'm just going to throw that same wash on here, just for the heck of it. It doesn't matter because there's no crying in acrylics, right? All right, there we go. So those are our shadows. And then I'm going to show you using the large brush for the plate. What color do we want the plate? I think something that's like a, let's use the pale yellow for the plate. I love my pale yellow. This is called, Vivio calls it bright yellow, but remember I was talking about the pigments earlier, and this has PW6, which is white, and then PY3, which is yellow. P for pigment, Y for yellow, right? Okay, so you can't see my yellow, but let me do that here. I got my brush wet first so that the paint will flow nicely. And here I'm just going to, let's try the pale yellow without any additional color in it. And I like using the big brush for doing these sort of bold strokes like this. So we've got a yellow plate. Now, what I might do later is come in and deepen some of the areas of the yellow. I'm not going to do that now on this part of the show. But usually I finish the artworks and then put them on my shop on Whatnot, and then you can see what happened, you know, what I ended up doing. You see how I'm coming in and I'm sort of covering over some of that shadow here, which is perfectly fine. That helps to blend it into the background. You can still see it through the background, so it still gives you the effect of the shadow. Now, I ran out really fast, so I'm going to have to put some more out there. Dip my brush to get it damp. Pick up the yellow. Love the big brush. Love, love, love it. Okay. So I'm not being too careful because I can always come back and fix, repair. There we go. And I'm sort of going over top of some of that shadow. And then that just gives me my plate. Interesting plate. I might go and later and put more design on the plate. Who knows? Who knows how I'll finish it? But I like using the big flat brush because, let me show you here, when I'm on my palette, let me do this. When I'm on my palette, I press it like this, so I get lots of paint in it, but I press it so I have quite a straight edge there. And that helps me to get into nooks and crannies like here in order to get around the design like that. And when I get into more open areas, like over here, then I use the paint that's in this part, like that. Makes it very quick and easy to do my shadows. Oh, not my shadows, sorry, my backgrounds. So that's this one. Now I'm going to show you the background, this part of the background up here, which I will do in blue. It's okay if you have to turn your artwork around. I do that a lot. I'm constantly turning my artwork. But if there's something that I look at later and go, ooh, I don't like that, right? I can just fix it because it's acrylic. I can go right back over top of it. It's amazing. Okay, so it's beginning to look really cool there. You can still see those beautiful shadows, even though I've put yellow over top of some of them. It helps them to blend right into the surface. And then let's do this part of the background. What I like to do with that is take a color like the plate would look good with a gold rim. Oh, I love that idea. Crazy Junk Art. Love, love, love that idea. You are absolutely right, especially since there's gold in the strawberries, right? So here is the, this is the Phthalo Blue. Now the whole name is Phthalo Cyanine Blue, but everybody calls it phthalo blue. It's PHTHALO. And it's a transparent paint, and it looks amazing with the white. So see how we still have some white down here? So I'm just going to put a bunch of the phthalo, and actually I need a bunch of the white too. It's important to know what paint you're using for your background, because I find I always run out. I don't quite make enough. And there's a whole bunch of white. If you weren't here earlier, I'm using the Pebeo Studio Acrylics for the colors, and this is the Artist Loft brand of the white. Okay, so this is my big palette knife, and I'm going to take the big palette knife and mix up a lot of the blue. And I see I have too much blue. I need it to be a little bit lighter, because those transparent colors tend to dry darker, and that is just too dang dark. So I'm going to add a bunch more white. There we go. Hold on just a moment. I have to plug in my iPad. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. So we're going to add a bunch more white in here. I like kind of a pale blue or pale green background. That's just me. So you see how I added a lot more white, and yet to me it's still too blue. Okay, more white. That the phthalo blue, it has a lot of tinting strength. Holy kashmoli, you can see. You can see. I probably have about 6 parts white now to phthalo, to 1 part phthalo. Okay, now we're getting lighter. We're finally getting into that lighter blue range that I'm looking for. Okay. Ooh. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to take my big old fat brush and get the yellow out of there. And let me use a paper towel here. And then set that aside. Try not to get everything too dirty. Great. I'm going to hold this here so you can see it. And I'm going to grab, remember I grab a bunch of color, make sure that my brush is flat. And then I just start moving around here. There we go. And this is how I lay in the background. And this is why I said if the edge of your artwork is not perfect, not to worry, because there's a lot of white in here and it's going to just cover it right up. Oh, I hear one of my doggies came in to join us. Okay. I also it's just me, but I like to leave a little bit of white sometimes around the edges of where I'm putting the background like this. So like I'll leave a little bit of an edge right around the plate and a little bit of the edge around the blueberry. It's very meditative to do these backgrounds, because you're using a big honking brush and you're just whacking the color on there, and it's so much fun. Okay, so sometimes on the edges I go straight out, like I'll get the edge of the brush and then straight out like that. And that helps me to get a more precise edge like that. Okay. You know what? I'm going to start the last giveaway, because we're just about done with the workshop. Isn't that looking amazing? It's looking amazing. Look at there. See how the background looks with it? I love that. Love my big brush for this. Okay, let me get it's amazing. Oh, thank you, Crazy Junk Art. Let me get the last giveaway going. And you know what? I'm going to wait just a little bit on that, because I want to show you something spectacular, and then I'll do the final giveaway. Okay. So don't be afraid to fill up your brush. Make sure you've made enough paint so you don't run out, because that is the worst when you're doing your background and you run out of paint, which I've done many times. And then you have to try to mix just the right color. It's horrible. Try to avoid it at all costs. Better to make too much paint. Oh, what I was just doing there was a little bit of something in there. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to finish this part so I can use up the paint. And then I'm going to show you, I'm going to start the giveaway and show you one last trick with the fluorescents. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It makes me so happy to paint. Thank you for joining me in my happy place tonight. Okay, there we go. Ooh. Okay, great. And then I usually just go over it and make sure that I have lots of big brush strokes, because I think it looks cool to have big brush strokes there. Now, of course, I'm going to go back and work on that more later to finish it off. But I wanted to show you all of the parts of it like that. Now, once this dries, if it gets darker, because that can happen, especially when you're working with the transparent paints, like the transparent blue I was telling you about, then you may want to mix up another set of blue with a lighter color to it and just go back over the whole background again. But it's okay. You can do that because we can just keep layering the acrylic with no problem at all. Okay, that's looking fab. Sometimes with the strokes, you have to turn it around or at an angle to get it just right. Okay, good. There was a tiny bit in here that I needed to get. Like that. Oh, yes, and a tiny bit right there. All right, cool. Cool, cool. Another thing is, as this paint dries, sometimes you'll notice it'll pull, it shrinks when it dries, and sometimes you'll notice that it creates little white spots, and you may want to go back in and fill those in also. Okay, oh, that is so fun. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to spray it with some water. Normally I would take some saran wrap, spray it with water, and cover it in saran wrap, and that keeps it moist. You know, like if you need to go run to the bathroom or go to lunch or something like that, that'll help keep your paint moist. Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can bring it up there for you. There you go. How fun is that? That is so fun. I'm happy with the way the light is starting to look there. Unfortunately, I'm looking at it in the camera and it's not, the colors are so bright, but they don't always come on camera as super bright. So I have to take a picture and then play with the exposure to get it right for you. All right, what I'm looking for is another one of these mixing things, which I don't know where my other one is. So I'm going to pull this one off. Okay, and put this somewhere where I won't mess it up. Okay. So what I wanted to show you was the amazing way that you can mix colors with fluorescents. So I'm going to clean this off because this is my favorite mixing palette knife. And I'm going to start the Gibby for the fluorescents, and I'm going to let you pick whether you want the pink fluorescent or the yellow fluorescent. Okay. Oops, I better put that in the water, right? Okay. So let me get that started. The last giveaway, and it is going to be for. Oh, you know what? We don't know which one. I'm just going to run the yellow one, but you'll be able to pick which one you want of the fluorescents, okay? So, okay, the fluorescent is running. what I wanted to show you was how don't be afraid of fluorescence just because the light fastness of a fluorescent is not excellent. Okay. You can still have a lot of fun with fluorescent. Look at me, I'm getting paint everywhere right now. Okay. New paper towel. So with the fluorescents, this pink I use instead of red or magenta for color mixing. So what that means is, and I'll show you with this one, and the same is true of the yellow. Instead of using a primary yellow for mixing, my favorite is to use the fluorescent yellow for mixing. So the fluorescents have like a middle light fastness here and here. That's a 2 light fastness. That means it's not the most excellent, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Let's have some fun. So here I'm going to use primary yellow, and with one of them we're going to mix the carmine. So that was a transparent red, and we're going to use this transparent pink. Oops, no, that's the one I'm giving away. Hold on. This is the one I'm using. I want you to have a pretty full one. Okay, so I put a little bit less of this this carmine red because it's very much a staining color, meaning it has a heavy staining or color to it. Okay, so here we're getting an interesting sort of tangerine color. Actually, let me add just a little bit more of this so they're more equal. Okay, here we go. So you get that kind of an orange using the primary yellow and the carmine. Okay, so you get that kind of orange, which is kind of tangerine-y. It's kind of dark. Okay, so now let's use the fluorescent pink with the same yellow. Oh my gosh, y'all. Okay, I got an orange, but wow. So this is what I call a high key or a high chroma color, meaning that you see how bright that is? That's using the same yellow. What a difference, right? So instead of using your typical reds for color mixing, which gives you a little bit duller orange, if you use that fluorescent pink, holy kashmoli. Okay, so let's use this fluorescent pink with blue. And so here's the fluorescent pink together with our phthalo blue. They're both mixing colors. And then let's do the phthalo blue with the naphthol, all right? So there's approximately the same amount of each there. So this is my naphthol. So these are transparent. The phthalo blue and the naphthol red are transparent colors. So that's about, you see this kind of, that's about even. So it just made it a little bit darker blue. If I wanted a purple, oh my gosh, I'm getting paint all over me. Okay, typical. Let's add just a little bit more of this naphthol red, and then it'll turn the purple a little bit more of a red purple. Okay, but you see how, again, how dark that is, right? That's a dark purple. If I throw a little bit of white into it, you're going to be able to see. Hey, Critter Chops, welcome in. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to throw a little bit of white in there so that you can, because you can see how dark that is, right? That's a dark color. And here it is with white. So not very nice blend, right? But if we use the fluorescent pink, oh, okay, who's going to win the giveaway? Critter Chops won the giveaway. Yay. Okay, Critter Chops. I'm going to let you select between the pink. This is fluorescent pink and fluorescent yellow, but let me finish the demo, and then you'll be able to, maybe you'll be able to decide which one you want based on the demo. Okay. So here is the fluorescent pink with that same blue. You're going to be shocked at the difference. And again, the blue is so overpowering. I'm going to add a little bit more pink to it so we can get the purple that I'm looking for, which is what we had to do over here. Add a little bit more of the red. There we go. Now we're getting the purple I want. So now we've got this incredible high key purple. Now I'm going to add some white so you can see it more easily. I'm shocked, right? I'm telling you, I discovered this on my own. The way I discovered it, pink, or my wife would kill me. Okay, Critter Chops, you're getting the pink. Oh, I love it. And these other two we'll give away next week because I'm also doing acrylic next week, but a different type of project. Okay. So there'll be more acrylic to give away next week. Okay. So here I'm adding some white to it so that you can see that it gives an amazing, like wisteria kind of color. Wisteria purple. You see that versus that? That one's almost gray, right? And this one is, oh, it looks more blue in the monitor, but I'm telling you, it's a beautiful, like wisteria purple color. Oh, I'm loving it. As a matter of fact, I don't want to waste it. So where's a piece of, I always have paper sitting around. I have this notebook here for leftover paint. And that way I don't waste anything. This becomes the background for something else. So here, beautiful purple color though that came out of that. Wow. Yeah, so you're definitely, if you didn't win the pink, you are definitely going to want to go buy one. And like I said, if you want to buy any of these Pebeo paints, you can go to my website and look under supply links, because I sell my artwork on Whatnot, but I don't supply paints. Okay, so now I've got this beautiful purple preserved, the purple background, and then I'll use that for something else. That'll become the background for something else. That way no paint left behind, right? Ooh, let's see. This one, that like crazy orange right there. All right, where are my extra papers? Hold on a second. Here they are. I got them. So I have these, I buy these for my greeting cards. So if you look at the greeting card I made this weekend, this is leftover paint in the background right there. So as I have leftover paint, I grab one of these handmade pieces of paper or a piece of watercolor paper, and then I can just whip it onto there. And that way I'll have a beautiful background for my next masterpiece. And I don't waste any paint. But I don't like those. I like the ones made with the pink. I'm so bad. Okay, let's see. I just love the bright. If you want to do like flamingos and stuff. Anyway, I was saying that I discovered using the fluorescents for color mixing because fluorescents are transparent paints. And I was like, transparent paints are the best ones to color mix with. It helps to have at least one transparent when you're color mixing of the two or more that you color mix. So let me try color mixing with these fluorescents and see what happens. And the rest is history. I just fell in love with mixing with the mixing with the fluorescents. So see, that one is a background for another piece. And then let's pull this off of here. This is palette paper. So if you don't have palette paper, you can also find that on my supply links on my website. All right, so let us do some color mixing with the fluorescent yellow, right? So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use fluorescent yellow, and we're going to use the, where did I put the primary yellow? Okay, there it is. Nope. Okay, y'all. I need to get it together here. We got fluorescent. We have pale. I love using the pale yellow actually to, all right. So we're going to do the fluorescent yellow together with the red. And then we're going to do the red. And I like to use the pale yellow. So this pale yellow is also very underrated. It is an amazing color to work with and to blend with. So here I've got the red and I have my, oh, you know what I did? I put my primary over here. We don't want that. Well, we can do that too. So this is primary yellow with the transparent red, naphthol red. And you have this interesting orange right here. And then here it is with the pale yellow. Now I'm going to probably have to add more pale yellow to it. But I love color mixing with this pale yellow or my yellow instead. Okay, so here is the orange that's made with that primary yellow and the naphthol red. But here is the pale yellow with that same naphthol red. I much prefer this one than this one. This one's a little bit dull, and this one is much brighter, like a salmon pink kind of color. So definitely this pale yellow is also an excellent choice for color mixing. But where did my fluorescent yellow go? Here's the fluorescent yellow. Did I do this one for you already? Fluorescent yellow and this. No. No. Yes. Okay. I was doing the pink for you before, right? I seem to recall I did this one already. I apologize if I already did it, but we're going to do it again. That's the fluorescent yellow with that naphthol. See, because it's transparent, I'm going to have to use more. And you get a beautiful orange out of this. What we did before was the yellow and the pink, right? Okay, so this is using the primary yellow, and this is using the transparent yellow, fluorescent. So the fluorescent, just the fluorescent gives us such nicer mixes, in my opinion. And since this one is a light fastness rating, oh, this is also a light fastness rating of 2, the red that I mixed. So that's fine. Let's use this fluorescent yellow with some of the phthalo blue. And the phthalo blue is so like staining. Let's just use a little bit of the blue compared to that yellow. Wait, let me get this all clean. And here we go. So this is using the fluorescent yellow. Wow. Super bright. Super bright. So I would call this color an emerald, like a phthalo emerald. That is the using the fluorescent with the blue, fluorescent yellow. So now I'm going to use just the regular yellow, like a regular mixing primary yellow with the blue, and you'll see the difference. Again, little bit less of the blue. Let me bring it up here so you can see it. So what you're going to see develop here is the difference between a spring or a hooker's green for landscapes and that kind of thing, and an emerald green, which I would normally mix to create my sort of sea foam kind of colors. So here is the green. It's more like a spring green, or a, like I said, if you mix it with more blue, it's a hooker's green that people are familiar with if you do watercolor. And then this was the same blue, but with the fluorescent yellow. Do you see the difference there? Holy kashmoli. This is very much a tending toward a teal or an aqua. And let's add a little bit of white to this one so I can show you. And then you can see that sort of tealy color, tealy, kind of almost a turquoisey color come out when you've used the fluorescent yellow with your mixing blue, instead of, this would be more landscapey, which is your traditional yellow with your mixing blue. Okay, any questions on that? I just wanted to be sure I shared with you about the fluorescence, because I adore working with the fluorescence. It's really bright and beautiful. Annie V says over on YouTube. Thank you. Yes, I love the working with fluorescent yellow and fluorescent pink. Now, in the line for Pebeo, they also have a fluorescent orange, which is amazing. But of course, you can mix a fluorescent orange with these two together. And other brands, for instance, Golden has a fluorescent blue. So you could do this same sort of exercise of mixing your various colors together. If you had that blue from Golden, you could do and some interesting mixes with the fluorescent blue instead of using your regular blue. All right. So I hope that was fun and educational. If you weren't here earlier, this is what we were working on. So if you missed the workshop portion of the show and you want to learn about like how to make a blueberry and how to make strawberries, I'm trying these with my golden fluorescence. Exactly, Crazy Junk Art. Color mix with your fluorescence. You will be so happy. But this is the, it's not quite done yet, but this is what we were working on with this workshop. So if you missed the workshop portion of the show and some of the other color mixing and techniques that we were talking about earlier, the past show can be found on Whatnot under past shows when it's over after the auction. And the you can also find the past live on YouTube. It'll be under the live tab on my YouTube channel. Okay. Oh, this is just so pretty. Let's do the same thing, but with this crazy green we just made right here. So I don't want to leave that paint behind. Let me get this out of the way. I'm running out of places to put wet paint. That's a good problem to have, not a bad one. Okay, so let's lift this up. And then here we go. This is using that leftover crazy green that I made with the phthalo blue and fluorescent yellow. It's much more emerald-like. Emerald, it tends toward emerald and teal, doesn't it? And even very turquoise-like. Okay, I bet if we threw a little bit more of that yellow in there, it would turn more turquoise even. Okay, so see, that becomes a background for another piece of art. What? Okay, and I'm gonna have to find a place for it. Okay, so we are going to make the handmade paper. Crazy junk art, I do not make the handmade paper. I scour the internet and I find really funky papers. I do have watercolor papers that are, this is my favorite, like all around, grab a piece of paper and play, is the Jack Richardson watercolor paper and postcards and the 135 pound, not the 88 pound, the 135 pound. Because the 88 pound, unfortunately, is not, is a little too flimsy for the mixed media stuff that I do and then I throw at it. So, okay, right now what we're going to do is get started on the auction part of the show. So I appreciate everybody who's joined me for the art workshop, which was so much fun. And now we're going to do the art sale. Oh, colors.